Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tracy Nyer, and I'm with the Virginia SBDC. I'll be your facilitator for today's webinar. For those of you who are not familiar, the Virginia SBDC is the largest and most effective provider of customized counseling and education for small businesses in Virginia. Most of our services are offered locally in 29 different locations throughout the Commonwealth. Today's webinar is one of our educational offerings and is part of our ongoing webinar series, Google and Beyond, Marketing and Managing on the Web. This series is designed to take a look at tools and techniques to help small businesses take their business to the next level. Today's topic is Overloaded Inbox. Google has a solution for you. All of our Google and Beyond webinars are presented by Ray Sidney Smith, web and mobile strategist, author of Solo Mo Success, Social Media, Local and Web Small Business Marketing Strategy Explained, and president of W3 Consulting, a digital business strategy and training firm. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type those questions into the question window and Ray will do his best to answer them. Without further ado, here's Ray Sidney Smith.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you to the Virginia SBDC for having me here on Beyond Google Marketing and Managing on the Web series. As Tracy said, we'll be talking about overloaded inboxes, the eternal question of how to manage email, and more importantly, how Google has created really an ecosystem, a platform for you to be able to manage that email. So first and foremost, a couple of housekeeping items. I'm having a little bit of internet issue in terms of connecting. So if for some reason I can't be heard or, there's a little hiccup, feel free to let Tracy know. Tracy will be listening in and making sure that I repeat myself. So I apologize up front, but we'll make it work. Two, if you have any questions, feel free to ask those now in the question panel as Tracy talked about. Now is the time to, if you have a question about any of the products we're going to be talking about or any email questions, now's a good time to ask them. If you have questions afterward, I'll have my email address on the final slide. I'm also always available on Twitter, so go ahead and, tweet at me at W3 Consulting. I'll be happy to answer those questions. And of course, follow Virginia SBDC for future programs, upcoming programs and information that they share about the small business resources there at the Virginia Small Business Development Center throughout the state. Okay, so with that out of the way, we're going to talk about a couple of things today. One, I want to just talk about the overarching guidelines of review of really good email management and how to deal with that overloaded inbox when it is overloaded. So I want to just talk about those two concrete points. We'll cover some guidelines for email management, and then I want to take us over into some demo, and we'll have a really fun time with going over Google's email productivity applications. We have Gmail, Hangouts, which is a chat and phone and video application. It's built within Gmail, but it has its own freestanding applications as well. We'll talk about Google Contacts, Google Tasks, and Inbox by Gmail, which is Google's most recent email product. So that'll be a lot of fun. We'll have a little bit of time at the end for question and answer, very little time, so please ask questions while we make our way through, and let's get started. So first and foremost, email. Email is one of those ubiquitous productivity tools that are out there, and while you might not think it, it is a productivity tool, not an unproductive tool or some kind of time sink. You are actually more productive by having email in your life. It's a fantastic innovation in human communication. It's just how you manage it that really makes a difference. So we have to really be aware of how email comes into us and how we deal with it and all of those things. So I just want to talk about a couple of points before I go into the overview of the tools to help you sort of understand how to deal with the sort of sometimes over communication that happens as it relates to email. Okay, so let's talk about the first thing. One is that we get a lot of email inbound from email newsletters. I'm sure that many of you probably want to market to your target audience via email newsletters. You might be subscribed to newsletters about business and industry and professional email newsletters and so on and so forth. Well, over time, you sort of get your eyes are bigger than your stomach in a lot of ways, and so you start to collect email newsletter subscriptions, and they start showing up in your email inbox, and potentially multiple email accounts because you create one email for personal, one for work, one for this particular reason, one for that particular reason, and all of a sudden you have email newsletters coming into many different email inboxes, and to some great extent you need to streamline and reduce the number of emails coming from newsletters, and I would recommend, as a side note, to try and reduce the number of email inboxes, and I think through the tools that I'll be showing you today you can actually do that and effectively have as few inboxes to be able to process and organize where you are moving and being more productive therein. So a couple of suggestions. One is that some email newsletters you have found to lack value, okay? And while I don't want you to unsubscribe from all of your email newsletters, by no means, there's sometimes really great resources and reasons for keeping a particular business or service or organization top of mind. You wouldn't want your customers or your target audience to, unwittingly unsubscribe, from all of your, email newsletters without giving it thought. So I really don't believe in just, thinking, oh, well, I'm just going to throw them all out and call it a day. I think it takes some strategic thought and some good planning and reflection time to think about which newsletters are really just no longer providing you value, okay? And whether or not you're receiving 2 or 3 email newsletters that really only one of them provides you the most value or is redundant and so on and so forth, okay? So think about how you can reduce the email newsletters. In some of the tools we have functions. I'll show you in Gmail. There's a function for being able to unsubscribe from newsletters directly from the subject line in the inbox. So there's a lot of ways in which you can do that. So reducing email inbox overload through unsubscribing from newsletters is my first suggestion. Okay. Next is really a matter of really good communication. I think we've talked about this in past webinars, but I think it's really important for people to recognize that you don't always communicate best via email. And when you decide that all communication happens via email, and there's lots of reasons why people do this, some say to themselves, well, I need to communicate all of my messages via email because then it creates a paper chain, or a paper trail. So I want to keep track of everything through email, and that's a noble thought. For some people, that makes a lot of sense. But by and large, a lot of misunderstandings, conflict avoidance, all of those things happen because we utilize email or other digital communication platforms as a crutch for not having good interpersonal skills. So I'm not saying you have bad interpersonal skills, but what I'm recommending, I'm suggesting to you, is to think about how you can actually train the people in your lives who may have a fear of face-to-face communications, a fear of synchronous, like a telephone call is a synchronous communication, you're communicating in real time with the person, or instant message, or other kinds of platforms that might be better than you attempting to do everything by email, okay? So if it's just a quick phone call that's going to clear up an issue and move a project forward, or get a task done, make the phone call, don't generate another email. And by modeling that, you then are capable of having your customers and the professional colleagues that you work with and your vendors learn that they can do the same thing, and that overarching perspective will then reduce the overload in your inbox. Okay, so it's just a suggestion to sort of emulate good email practices, and that will, by nature of people seeing what you're doing, they will start to do those practices along with you. Next up, there are a plethora of tools out there to help you kill email before it even gets to your inbox, okay? One service that I absolutely adore is one called Unroll.me. And Unroll.me is an application that's free, and I don't know how much longer that will be or whether it will be forever. I'm not quite sure what their business model is, which is always a scary point because I don't want them to go away. But Unroll.me is a service that basically takes all of your email newsletter subscriptions and bundles it up into sort of a single email newsletter. Okay? So every day it goes out there and looks at all of the various email newsletter subscriptions, And you can go in there and manage that. You can tell it which ones are and which ones aren't, and which ones you want to show up in your inbox as an individual email, and which ones you want to show up in the unroll.me email newsletter. And so it goes ahead and grabs all of those and puts them together, and now you get to review those email newsletters in one clear view. And it's absolutely phenomenal. So if you have a busy day and you don't have time to really deal with the newsletters, it's not going to clutter up your inbox because it's just one email. You can go into that interface and really deal with it. And they just scaled out a mobile application, a smartphone application, so you can actually manage that inside of your phone on the go as well. So really cool tool. I like it. Next up is an application called SaneBox. I think it's about $5 a month or something like that, but it's pretty nominal in terms of cost. And what SaneBox does is it goes out there and looks at all of your various email and categorizes it and does various filtering, but it also has workflow automations. So you can tell some email, say that you keep getting email from someone you don't want to receive email from. You can just have it go into what SaneBox calls its black hole. And so you just drag that email into the black hole folder and poof, you never see it again or any email from that person again. You can do that with newsletters. You can just drag it into the unsubscribe folder, different kinds of workflow automations to be able to sort of filter and move email where it needs to go without you having to deal with it. And it's pretty platform agnostic, so it can actually connect outside of your application that you're currently using. So whether it's Gmail or Outlook or something like that, it doesn't really matter. It deals with the email before it ever gets to your inbox, which is really helpful. And finally, in this one, I'd like to talk about an application called Boomerang. Boomerang is an application that works on top of the Gmail platform, and I thought it was appropriate since we're talking about Gmail and other applications today. And Boomerang, what it does is it gives you the ability to do a bunch of things. One, it allows you to sort of snooze email. So what that means is that what it does is it sort of temporarily archives the email message that's come into your inbox. You say, oh, you know what, I can't deal with this email at the moment. So you take that particular message and it archives it, and then it brings it back from archive into your inbox at the date and time that you've told it to. So it's really phenomenal for that. I think you get 10 free snoozes basically for Boomerang. It's like a boomerang, you throw it, it comes back to you. The same concept of the snooze. You sort of it makes it turn off for a little while and then it comes back on. Well, Boomerang I think comes with 10 free credits per month, and then you have to pay after that. I think it's $5 for the first tier, and then it goes up thereafter. And it also has another function in it, which is not in Gmail, which I don't understand, which is the ability to be able to send later, which means that you can actually set the tool to schedule an email to someone. So, in my company, I don't send email messages after 6 p.m. usually, and so what I do is I usually schedule those to go out the next morning at 8 a.m. So I always want to make sure that when I'm sending email out, I can use Boomerang to say, oh, okay, it's 6, 7 p.m. Eastern time. I don't really want to send a message to someone and sort of upset their evening or anything else like that. I'll send it in the morning, especially if it's Friday evening. I'll send it usually for Monday morning to go out, so they have it in their inbox fresh in the morning. Well, Boomerang has that, and I can say, hey, by the way, I'm going to send this, and tell Boomerang, if I don't get a response within X number of days, X number of weeks, or if I do get, even if I get a response, I want you to actually send this email back to me to remind me that this is an ongoing conversation thread in a week. So it gives you the ability to tell the email to basically come back into my view at some point. If so-and-so doesn't respond in 2 days, I want to know that they didn't respond, so come back into my inbox so that I know, hey, I wonder what happened, they didn't respond to me. This can be very helpful in sales, it could be very helpful in just project management, so very, very cool tool and very nominal cost. Okay, next up is in the productivity community, in which I spend a lot of time as a productivity geek, is this concept of the email inbox bankruptcy, right? So if you've gotten to that point where you have just filled up your inbox with all kinds of stuff and you feel overwhelmed and you don't know what to do, and it's been, like this for quite some time, I usually say if it's been more than 3 to 6 months, it's time to just, take everything in your inbox and do one of a couple things. I mean, you can just basically take everything in your email inbox and put it in a folder called archive, right? You just throw it all into a folder called archive. What I typically like to do with regard to email inbox bankruptcy is to do a couple of things. One, in Gmail, I will tag all of the email in the inbox before today, right? So, and some people say a week. I like to say today because, if you just really aren't dealing with email, you can sort of go quickly through the email inbox and see who you do actually need to talk to, who you actually need to address today, yesterday, this week, right? And then everything after that, or everything before that, in essence, you're going to go ahead and highlight, select all. If it's 10,000 emails, I don't care. You're going to select them all. You're going to go ahead and create a new label that's called like the date. Basically you're going to type in, 2015, 11/18, and you're going to go ahead and create that tag, 11/19, I'm sorry, is today's date, and you're going to create that tag and label all of the email that is in your inbox that date. Now you're going to again select all of those emails that are now tagged 11/19/2015, and then you're going to archive that out of the Gmail inbox. In an Outlook program or another, you'd just basically be adding that label, adding that tag, and then you'd be, moving those email to a folder called archived. You can even call it archived, and the date. So now they're all out of your inbox, and for all intents and purposes, they're deleted, quote unquote, right? And if you ever need them, you could search for them. If it's something for reference purposes or otherwise, you can go back and find them. They're gone. But going forward now, you have your email inbox clean, at least as of a particular date. And now you can effectively keep it, as near empty as possible. And the reason why you want to keep your inbox as near to empty as possible is because it's sort of similar to your physical mailbox outside your home, right? So many people tell me they use their inboxes as sort of their main place for tracking actions and tasks. And it seems absolutely absurd to me, but it's okay for those people who it works for. But if it's not working for you, think about it from this perspective. You have a physical mailbox at your home and you receive mail at it. And every day, I'm presuming you come home and you open up your mailbox, you take your mail out, and you walk into your home with it. You either process the trash into the garbage, you look at the bills, you look at maybe potentially a letter or two that you receive. I don't know if people still send letters, but if you receive letters from friends and family or cards, birthday cards, holiday cards, those kinds of things, right? You process that inbox and then you do things with them. Well, the same thing kind of applies with your email inbox. Do you ever take a holiday card that you received from your loved one and walked it back out to your mailbox and put it back in there and said, you know what, I'm going to come back out here and look at that tomorrow just to remember that I have it? No. You take your holiday card and you put it on the fridge, or you put it on your mantle in the living room, or you put it up on some corkboard or someplace where you can see it and appreciate the sentiment that the person had in sending you that particular holiday or greeting card. The same thing with your bills. You put your bills where you pay your bills. You may put it with your checkbook or other kinds of things. The same thing applies in your email inbox. Why are you pushing your inbox to be overloaded so that it no longer is actionable stuff and stuff in which you need to reply to, but it's all of this minutia that removes its context. So I really recommend that you think about how to keep your email inbox as empty as you would your mailbox at home. You want it to be a working, operating device, because if you don't, very similar to the post office, a carrier, he'll come to your mailbox, and once it's full, he's sort of like, well, I really don't know what to do with your mail other than to keep stuffing things into it. And it becomes less functional, because then when you come and you find your physical mailbox full of stuff, you're less likely to want to deal with that clutter. And that's the same thing that happens in an email inbox, okay? So email inbox bankruptcy is an option for you. If you really feel like bankruptcy is not for you, there is the option of what I call the chip away at the pile method, okay? And this comes from a friend of mine had recommended it many years ago, and I've just loved the idea, and I recommend it to so many people. But the idea here is to chip away at the pile from both ends of the overloaded inbox. Okay, so this is how it works. You're going to take today, yesterday, and the oldest day's email items, and you're going to deal with them. That is, you're going to delete them, you're going to defer them to a later date to deal with, not in your inbox, but outside of that, some other management tool. You're going to reply, or you're going to do the action associated right then and there, usually if it only takes 2 minutes or less. Okay? And this is some of the material based on the Getting Things Done by David, the book Getting Things Done by David Allen. But the idea here is that you take today, yesterday, and the oldest day's email, because you're working on keeping current. You never want to give up, the current. Like what happened yesterday? I had a crazy day. I forgot to check my email. Okay, great. Well, I'm gonna clean up the rear guard from at least the current today and yesterday. And then you're going to go to the oldest day's email, because over time what you're going to realize and recognize is that you could just be deleting a lot of the oldest stuff. There is very little value in that oldest stuff, and you might decide, well, heck, I'm going to delete weeks worth of archive messages, and you'll just get that much quicker. But it's whittling away at the pile. You didn't create, you didn't receive all of that email all in one day. You received it over time. I recently talked to someone. I was coaching someone who had like about 25,000 messages in her email inbox, and it just happened, she said. And I said, well, let's go back to the email and look at the date structure, right? And as we go through the email date structure, these are emails that came in 4 and 5 at a time over the course of 7 years. Okay? And she just never dealt with them. She dealt with the most important, the latest and loudest, as it's called. And she dealt with those important and urgent and sometimes not important urgent items just because they were on fire. And then left everything else to sort of pile up. So it didn't start overnight. Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither were the piles of email clutter. So today, yesterday, and the oldest day's email is manageable to do, and it whittles away at that pile until you can clear all of the email out and get to a working, clean inbox. Okay? Finally, there's this game, and I'm a huge advocate for appropriate gamification in life, and made by the people who make the Boomerang tool is a game called Email Game. And it works with Gmail and Google Apps for Work Email, so basically the two Gmail products under Google's world. So the work form version of Gmail, which is called Google Apps for Work Email or Google Apps for Work Mail, and Gmail, okay? And you go to emailga.me, which spells out Email Game, and it has you log into your email account, and it turns it into a really fun game. So you play the email game, and it's just a fun way to process through your inbox. You have to hit a reply, you have to delete it, it has to go somewhere, you have to forward it to someone. You just play the game and get through your inbox. So if you like a little gamification, you can try the email game, okay? So those are really my suggestions for good email management when you're just in a completely overloaded state, okay? And so at this point, I want to give people an opportunity to ask questions, and go ahead and ask questions as you need them while I go ahead and swap over to our demo window. So if you have questions, feel free to ask them now. Now is the time to go ahead and do that.
We don't have any questions right now, Ray.
Okay, no problem there. So what I'm doing right now is I am opening up our little demo account, and let's go first to here. All right, so the first application, like I said earlier, I wanted to talk about Gmail, the Hangouts application, tasks, contacts, and then Google Inbox, which is the newest program from Google and the Gmail team. And so let's talk about some of these. I'm in a demo account, so we're just going to be playing around in this little demo site. So as you have questions, feel free to obviously ask them, and we'll try to make our way through, as I show you sort of some setup features that are helpful, and also some of the productivity components built into it that make it really helpful as we move along. Okay?
Great. And when you're
So
covering this, if you'll cover tags, we do have a question about tags, so showing people how to use the tag function.
sure, absolutely, and we could do that right now. It's right here under Settings. So what I just did, in case you missed it, was that I hovered over the gear icon in the top right-hand corner of the screen, and then I just browsed down to Settings, and inside Settings, the second tab in, right here where I'm circling, is Labels. And under Labels, you can see all of the various labels. So in essence, think about Gmail labels as folders that would be existing in Outlook or Mail or any of the other applications that you might use for managing email on a desktop in a desktop environment. Okay, so they're folders, except that you can have the same email, right? It's not duplicating the email. It's the same email that lives within many folders. Okay, so I can label one thing, inbox, and it just lives in my inbox. I can also label it as work or clients, and it can now live with and be associated with work and with clients. Okay, so you can have them associated with many different things at the same time. And what we want to do is we want to be able to disassociate it from inbox and move it to other contexts in Gmail so that we know what it is for later reference purposes, okay? Or we want to delete it. You can delete it as well. But Google creates a couple of system-wide labels and categories at the outset. So while from an email functionality purpose, think of email labels or Gmail labels as folders. When you're thinking about it from a productivity perspective, you want to think about it from the idea of a context or a life category, as I like to call it. Okay, so a life category is something like a personal project that you have that's ongoing, something that you're always doing, like your personal health. Maybe you have a fitness app that sends you email. Maybe you have accounting and finance, emails that come in from your bank and from your financial services firms and so on and so forth. You might want to label that as finance, like I do. And so you have these things that help you categorize, and you can set up filters in Gmail, which I'll show you in a little while, that allow you to go ahead and automatically tag them, and then the ones that are not tagged, you can go ahead and manually tag very quickly and easily. Okay, so let's just go into the settings here. So here goes all the tags, and you can create new tags very easily from the inbox. But once you've created them, they're all here, and you can move them around. You can see that I can hide particular labels from the view on the left-hand side panel, and all kinds of other fun things, and then move them around, and so on and so forth. These circles are actually associated with Google+. So if you have Google+ and are using Google+, those circles actually can be utilized as labels as well. And then you have your personal labels. It actually gives you a create new label function in here, but I never do. I always create it associated with being in the inbox. So Gmail creates 4 labels for you here: personal, receipts, travel, and work. And these might have actually been created partially from when I installed Google Inbox by Gmail in the process. I don't know if those actually show up as new labels in a new installation. This is a new installation in the sense that I don't use it, but when you connect different tools, they start creating these things in Gmail. So these categories are built on the premise of auto-filtering that Gmail does, so that you're capable of putting things into buckets so that you can sort of see the primary inbox of things that are from people that are one-to-one messaging. And then everything that's one-to-many messaging, that might be email newsletters, that might be notices that your bank has sent you a new account statement, or a notice that from an email newsletter, those go out there. Or if you have an email list or an email forum you're a part of, it puts it into the forums. It sort of gives you options to put those kinds of emails into those buckets, because they're one-to-many. It's not directly to you. And so you want to see the primary inbox of the one-to-one messaging. And then, of course, you have your main system labels. You have your inbox where everything comes into, if you haven't filtered it to come to someplace else. Starred messages, which is its own context of being, this is important to me. That's the best I can give a description for it. Important is actually a category that Google uses for a set number of algorithmic factors. They use whether or not the email message is just directly to me, whether it's in the to line. So if you have a message to multiple people, am I in the to line or am I in the CC line? It determines that an email is important based on how much I've actually emailed with that individual before. And then some other criteria that it hasn't really explained to the public world, but it uses this particular algorithm for being able to identify importance of that message, and therefore it actually labels it with a little bit of a yellow caret, or a chevron as they call it, to show you that an email message is important. You have chats, which I'll talk about when we get to the Hangouts portion in a couple of minutes. You have sent mail, messages that you've sent outbound, and I actually like to process my outbound messages the same way I process my inbound messages. And that might sound a little bit crazy, but the reality is that I like to archive inbound and outbound messages so that they all live in the same contexts, so that I'm able to better manage my email. Okay, so I really think that there's an important reality to seeing sent and received email together. Now, Gmail does most of that for you very easily, but I actually like to move my messages out of sent and into the what's called all mail. See this little tag here, this label, which is an area called all mail, and out of the sent mail in my native app, sort of the desktop applications, because I want to be able to quickly see the last couple of emails I've sent, or see the emails that are from today. I don't really want to see, or from this week. I don't want to really see hundreds of emails in my sent folder, because presumably I've dealt with the outstanding items of why I've sent that email message, and those are tracked in my system outside of email somehow. Okay, so just it's not for everybody, but I tend to like to actually track outbound messages as well. You have drafts for messages that are in process. So if you have a fit of anger at someone in your office, you type that message into draft and you save it there before you hit send, so that you can calm down and write a more appropriate message. You have spam. Spam is, for messages that Google thinks are unsolicited commercial messages, or in some way, shape, or form malware or other kinds of things. Typically, they will delete any messages that they believe are malware before it even gets to you. But if the email itself is just spam but may include a link to malware, it will also put it in the spam folder. So in general, I would check the spam folder once in a blue moon, but the reality is that Google is very, very good at identifying spam and eliminating those from your inbox. Trash is where email goes for 30 days and then is deleted permanently. And by permanently, I mean permanently. Okay, so I hope that goes over the labels in basic terms. If you have more specific questions about labels, I'm happy to answer them. I'm going to jump back to the inbox just so that everyone can see the overarching layout, and I want to cover just a few quick items about it, and then move on to the other applications that live here inside the inbox. So note, I also want to note here at the top here, I have unattended mailbox and now vacation settings. I've set up this email inbox so that if someone were to do a training with me and then see that email and then attempt to email me, they will get a notice basically telling them that this is an unattended mailbox. So that's why that's up there. That would not be in your installation. So it's just the way that it previews in mine. Okay, I'm just going to do this to give us a little more space. And so here we are. This is the main inbox, and let me just go over the basic overview of the space. On the top bar, you can see that this is the Google logo. The Google logo actually takes you back here to the inbox. So if at any point in time you sort of get buried in settings or buried in an email and you want to just get back to the inbox, you can always just quickly click on the Google logo for Gmail, and it will take you back to this main page. To the right of that is search. Google gives you a very sophisticated ability to search by email criteria such as who it's from. You can just type a person's name, a part of an email address. You can type in star, an asterisk, and then the domain for the email and look for that within the email. You can search just based on a label. You can search, again, to whom you've sent an email message, or to whether it was to you, maybe it was to a different email address. That's, you have multiple email addresses for yourself, or whatever it might be. You can search by to. You can search it by the subject of the email. You can search whether it has particular words or whether it doesn't have particular words. You can say, I want all email messages that don't have this particular term. You can look for attachments, so you can check it and then it'll look for attachments. You can say, I want it to include or not include Google Hangouts chats. So if I've been having instant messaging chats, I want to be able to include those in the messages or not. You want to look for email that are particular sizes. So if it's greater or less than a particular size, you can go ahead and do that. And then, of course, date orientation. So I can say I want to look at all email that happened, 1 week, 1 week during the X month, right? So, so I can say I want to look for all email within 1 week of November 9th, 2015. It'll look just in that time frame of 7 days and go ahead and find that email for you. So very sophisticated search functionality, which again allows you to be able to find email across multiple labels and across multiple criteria, so you really can find almost everything you need at all times. Okay. Over to the right, you have your name. It'll appear here if you put it in. If you have a Gmail account, you do need a Gmail account or a Google account in order to be able to have Gmail. And the name that you put in there will appear here, the first name. Here is the application launcher button, and it launches whatever other applications you have available to you. Next to that is if you have Google+, this is the Google notification icon, and then your profile or account logo or icon will appear here, and if you click on that, it gives you the options to be able to access those. Okay. Next row is your Gmail selector for applications. So if I click on that drop down, you can see that it'll take me to contacts and tasks, and I'll be going over that in just a minute or two. And so you have access to Gmail there. You have the selector button. This allows you to be able to select all, none, read, unread, starred, and unstarred emails, a particular view. So if you've done a search, you can actually select those within that particular view. You can refresh to get new messages that you may think it may have come in between something that you were doing, but know that Gmail is consistently looking for new email and will automatically refresh. You don't have to click that refresh button. The new messages will just come in naturally. You can also mark all items as read, and once you've selected messages, more options will appear. Okay, so many people get confused by this, but see that I clicked on an email, I selected an email by clicking on the checkbox. All of a sudden you can see that more options came up. I can mark something as spam, I can archive it to all mail, delete it, and put it in particular folders or categories, and so on and so forth. Okay, so other options are available once you click on a message. Left-hand side panel gives me compose, the big red button, and then of course the different views for labels and areas that have been created. Across the next, over on the right-hand side panel, you can see I can browse through different email. And then settings. And I'm going to go through settings just very, very quickly because we're running out of time for this section, but I just wanted to go over some of these. So the next layer down below that, you have these categories as Gmail has created them, and they lump these things under primary, social, promotions, and so on and so forth. You can create more just by clicking on the plus button and organizing them, and they tell you what each of them does. If you hover over promotions, it tells you that deals, offers, and other marketing emails will go in there. Okay, so that's that. All right, so in the email inbox, you can see that at the very bottom left-hand corner of your main screen, it tells you how much space you have in that particular email inbox. Gmail out the gate gives you 15 gigabytes across Gmail, Google Photos, Google Drive, and so across those products you have 15 gigabytes, and then you can always upgrade those through Google at any time. Your terms of service and your privacy policies there at the bottom, and it actually also gives you some personal security information where it tells you the last account activity was 3 minutes ago, and if you click on details, it'll actually take you into your security account to tell you the last location and time you've been logged into the account to make sure that it's secure. Okay, so back up to the right-hand corner, settings, drop down. You can change the display density, meaning that how much space does the words fit into the screen. So if you feel like you're seeing not enough email messages in the Gmail thread, you can go ahead and shrink that in there to see more of them. You can configure your inbox, and that's that plus button that I hit on the categories bar. And then settings and themes, you can create different themes and other kinds of things. Okay, so very, very quickly, I just want to cover the points within Gmail that help you with sort of the overwhelm that happens when you have too many messages. One is here on the General Settings tab, you have the ability to show maximum page sizes. So if you get overwhelmed by seeing 50 email messages at a time, you could reduce that to 10. So you just process 10 email messages at a time, okay? Because if you show 100 messages in your inbox, you might get overwhelmed. And I think there's really some help in being able to just see 10 at a time. So it's I deal with 10, then I deal with another 10, then I deal with another 10, okay? So you can do that really easily, quickly, and well. Another thing that people have issues with overwhelm is people don't like the threading, or they do love the threading of their email conversations, and it gets turned on or off somehow, and they don't know what happened. Well, right here under conversation view, you have the option of turning on and off conversation threads. What that means is that if you have the same message happening, the same subject line, someone replies with Ray, your subject line, Google and Gmail goes ahead and puts them all together for you in the same conversation thread. It's just one line item in your inbox. Well, some people like them separate so that they're different email messages so they don't quote-unquote miss them. And some people like them together. Well, at some point you might turn it off or didn't realize you turned it off, or something happens and they all explode and then you get overwhelmed. You can go ahead and turn that back on right here from the General Settings tab. Okay? Two is you can send and archive buttons, send an archive when you reply to something. I use this all the time, which is that when I send something outbound, I like this send and archive button. So I check off the boomerang message to send it back to me if someone doesn't reply. And if someone replies, then I don't need it to send back to me. And so I immediately send and archive that message as soon as it goes. So if I get an email into my inbox, I send and reply. I reply to that message, I hit send and archive, and now it goes off to all mail and is out of my inbox, and now Boomerang knows to come back, to bring it back to me if I need it to. Okay, so it's really very helpful. And finally, on the Generals tab, there is the concept of keyboard notifications, okay? Keyboard shortcuts. So whenever you are on the Gmail inbox screen, or I think it's anywhere in Gmail, let me see. Yes, it works anywhere within Gmail. This screen can be pulled up just by using the question mark. Okay, so these are all the keyboard shortcuts. You never need to leave your keyboard while you are processing Gmail email. You can do this all completely from the keyboard. You don't need your mouse. Okay, so that's really great because you can just pull up the question, hit question mark and see all of the various functions that you can do to get around Gmail and do what you need to do while you are using your keyboard, right from your keyboard. Just hit question mark, which is usually shift and then /. Okay. All right, we talked about labels. You have your inbox. You can play around with your inbox as much as you want. You can actually streamline your email within Gmail by going ahead and setting up your other email accounts. So say you have a personal Gmail account and you have a work email account and you have separate programs for checking those. Well, you can pull them all into the Gmail interface without your customers ever knowing the difference. Okay, so and Gmail is very smart about this. So very, very quickly, you can go ahead and add email accounts, whether POP or IMAP, into Gmail interface, and you can send email as your business name, so to be your name at yourbusinessname.com, and you can go ahead and do all of that directly from the Gmail interface. I apologize. You have to use, these are only for POP3 accounts, so this is not for IMAP services. So if you have an IMAPed service, you can't use the Gmail interface, is my understanding, within the Gmail interface as it stands. There are other applications on Android that do that, but not in the Gmail interface. So as you can see here, you can add a POP3 email account. You can also send an outbound message. You can set up an outbound email address so that when you receive an email from your work account, you can reply from your work account directly from within Gmail, okay? And what I like to do is when I set up the message, it gives you an option to tag all of those email messages as the work email, okay? So I like to actually tag it as the email address. So there's a big old, email address tag that shows the email it comes from, so that I immediately contextualize and know what email address it's replying from, so that I don't make a mistake and send an email back to someone from my personal email, okay? So that is just, for me, huge to streamline. I have many email accounts, and they all funnel into, the one email inbox. Well, for me it's two, but for you it would be one, hopefully, and you would be able to funnel those all into one Gmail interface where you can just process from the same one, one faucet, instead of having 50 faucets trying to, catch water from all of them, okay? Really, really helpful. Okay. You can block and filter messages. Google gives you the ability to create all kinds of messages. So you can see here that if any message comes from this old email address, it automatically, if a message comes in, it automatically skips the inbox and gets forwarded to someone who used to work for me. Okay, so you can see that it's automatically designed to just filter email out. If it comes into the inbox, it's going out there. You can go ahead and export these to a different Gmail account. I can delete it, which I'm going to do right now, and voila, you can create new filters. You can set criteria based on anything, almost anything that you can search on. So if you do a search here and then you create a criteria like has an attachment, I can create a filter based on that. Okay, so very, very helpful. And next up is forwarding messages. You can forward messages to particular people, and I'll talk about chat in a moment. Labs are really cool, but we don't have time for that today. You can check email offline. You can install Gmail offline, so you can actually manage emails in the browser offline. So it'll check the last time you connect to internet, get on a plane, get on a train, go in a subway, respond to the email messages, move things around, and then when it gets back online, it goes ahead and resynchronizes, sends any emails in your draft folder, pulls any new messages in from the server that has come in the interim. Okay, so that's pretty much Gmail, overloaded functions. I don't want to talk about all the functions of Gmail, but really the ones that you really need for when you're overwhelmed. Now, the next one, product that I want to talk about just briefly is Google Contacts. So Gmail has built into it Google Contacts. It opens up in a different screen, so give it a moment. And so just briefly, Google Contacts is Google's ability for you to be able to manage contacts right within the Google interface. So it just synchronizes across Gmail and Hangouts and all the other applications that it has. And you can see that it merges information that Google has publicly about the person and fills that information in for you. It finds duplicate contacts and just makes it into one easy list, and you can just manage it across all the various places that are out there. So you can see that I have one contact in this dummy account, and it's me. And so I can go ahead and manage everything from there. So if you have just a bunch of contacts all over the place in different email accounts, you can export those contact lists, throw them into Google Contacts. Google gives you the ability to import here. You can import all of them, do the duplicate function. So you can say it says you have one duplicate contact, view duplicates, manage all the duplicates, export that list, or just keep that list in Google Contacts now, and now you have a clean email list to re-import into your application. So I really love Google Contacts. If I come across a client who's completely overwhelmed by the management of their email contact list, we just throw it into Google Contacts, we clean it up, and either leave it in Google Contacts to synchronize with their service, or we download it and put it back into Outlook or Mail or wherever else they might manage their email. So Google Contacts is really cool for that. Tasks. Gmail has this really great application called Tasks. It's super simple. And what we could do here is we could do a bunch of things. So I created this sample thing that says schedule a meeting with Tracy about more calendaring fun. And you can see I can mark it as completed. I can put a due date. I can write some notes, and I can delete things from this particular list and just track your to-dos right in here. So instead of dealing with all of your email as tasks, you can go ahead and track the tasks in the inbox and separate them from your email. So really, I think it's a great tool, even though it's very unsophisticated. You don't really need a lot of sophistication when it means just tracking the things that you have to get done today. Just you write a list of things, like buy milk, and there it is. Now you know you need to buy milk, and it's accessible on your phone. It's accessible in many different places. Tasks itself is available as a mobile web interface, but if you have G-Tasks, which is one application that lets you synchronize your Google Tasks with a smartphone application, so you can access them and do all kinds of really cool stuff on top of that. So Google Tasks is pretty amazing, and I like it, and it's built right here, so you can. Instead of keeping email in your inbox, you can type into the tasks, these are the applications associated with what I need to do. So let me get those out of the inbox and just track the action associated with it.
Ray, if you add a
yeah.
due date to those tasks, does it then populate the Google Calendar?
No, these live inside of your Google Tasks interface. There are applications that allow you to be able to put them on your Google Calendar, but this does not. No,
okay.
This is so if I go ahead and type in a due date here, 19th, and then back to the list, that just lives here. Okay, so it doesn't have a place or connection to Google Calendar, at least not that I'm aware. I've never seen it show up in Google Calendar. So, okay. So next up is Hangouts. Okay, so I have Hangouts turned off inside of the Gmail interface for purposes of this chat, but it does live inside of Gmail, and so just like this tasks item that shows up here, you can actually turn on chats, and they can appear either in your right-hand side dashboard or in your left-hand side dashboard or otherwise, and they just sort of hover here. What I want to show you is you can actually open up a separate tab and run your instant messaging conversations, video, and voice calls all right here from a separate screen by going to hangouts.google.com. And just because we're running short on time, just know that it exists, and it's really great to be able to just instead of sending an email, you can actually just start a really quick conversation with a staff member or with a client and get answers asked and questions answered just very, very quickly here. If you need to make a phone call, you can make phone calls, and you'll see all of your Google contacts here in the Google Hangouts window. So that includes email addresses and phone numbers and all the other fun stuff. So if I wanted to call, I just click on the phone call button, and voila, it makes a phone call. Okay, I'm not going to do that, but you can make phone calls, and it's free. So at least in national, domestic phone calls are free. So that's Google Hangouts. Really, really great for having in there. And then last but not least is Google's newest product, Google. What's called Inbox by Google, and what it does is it tries to help you sort of streamline some of the other components that the Gmail interface has been operating. So one, Gmail and Inbox by Gmail are both synchronized. They're the same email. Okay, so what you're doing in one is affecting the other. Okay, I like to use them both in tandem. When you register, at least this is what happened with me, is that I had to actually make sure I downloaded the smartphone application before Inbox worked for me, but that might be different with yours. I don't know, maybe it was just because I had the account for so long. But either way, Inbox by Gmail basically does a couple of things, and I just would going through their opening slideshow so you can see. One, it goes ahead and highlights some information that's usually helpful. So like if you got a package being delivered, it actually gives you the track package link as a rich snippet that you could just click on and immediately open up USPS or UPS or FedEx tracking information. So it's just a very smart way to track flight information and locations and calendar events and all of those other kinds of things that you might be looking for. You can add reminders into the inbox. It's actually my biggest gripe with Google Inbox, which is I don't like the idea of using my inbox as a task management system that is making things look like email that aren't email. Okay, but you could do it here. I mean, if you really functionally only have a couple things that you want to keep a reminder of, you can actually do that here in the inbox interface. You can snooze emails similar to Boomerang. You can actually snooze emails to a particular time in the future. Okay, so what that means is it temporarily marks it done. Done is the equivalent of archive in Gmail, and so it goes ahead and archives it or marks it done for a particular particular period of time. The really awesome part is that because you have it paired with your smartphone, you can actually pick a place, and when you get to that location, say the grocery store, it will actually then pull that email back up into your inbox and give you a notification so that you can see that email at that time. Okay, so really helpful if you need to sort of snooze an email, but also then remind you about something when you get to a place. Okay, so say someone emailed you and said, "Hey, we need these. We need some office paper. We need staples and some Post-it notes for the office." Well, you can say, you know, remind me when I get to Staples or to Office Depot or to another office supply store to buy these items, and then it'll pop up on your phone when you get there. You have these things called bundles. Bundles are similar to categories in Gmail, except they are not the same. Okay, so while they may have similar names like purchases and promos and updates and so on and so forth, they operate differently, and they give you some really interesting ways in which to sort of clean up and declutter and organize particular messages. Okay, it's automated, so it sort of deals with what happens and what goes in there, and then you can teach it over time what items actually don't belong in there or belong in other places. So it's machine learning. I mean, it's learning as you make your way through. You can see here it gives you the option to set up some automated bundles, and then once you get into the inbox interface, you can actually create new bundles. And all that means is just selecting a couple of email messages that fit that category, like work or an email account that you're receiving email messages to. You select those, and then you select the option to create a new bundle. So here I'm selecting to create all the bundles that it offers me, but not the low priority. I don't really find value in categorizing low priority emails, and so go ahead and click on done, and now I have the inbox that's there. Now these same email messages that were in the dummy account that we were just in Gmail are now here in Gmail's inbox, but you can see they're automatically categorized according to where they fit. So all the emails that are associated with updates are there, social, and promos. So these are anything that fits into a social network or otherwise are all bundled into it, and it's pretty easy. If I don't need to deal with any of the emails and updates, I can just click on this button and they're gone. They're all marked done. You can see there are 25 messages in social, and I say, well, you know what? I don't need to deal with anything in that. Click on marked, done. Bottom left-hand corner, there's an undo button, so if I'm like, oh my gosh, I might have missed something in those 25 messages, I can go ahead and click on that undo button and it brings it back. I can review these and say, oh, these are just messages that they have been sending me to remind me to come back to Google Plus or to Quora and check them out. I don't need to deal with any of those things. Mark them all done, and the 25 items are done. If it's more than 25 items, it will give you a prompt and say, hey, you're attempting to archive, basically mark as done more than 25 messages. Do you really want to do that? And then you can just do that. And because you can see when you mark everything done, there's a little sunshine that they show you to show that you have an empty inbox. And this is my favorite view. When my email inbox is empty, I'm a happy camper. And so with that, I'm going to take us back to give us a little bit of time to answer any questions you might have about any of the platforms we discussed, and then we can close out. Tracy, I'm going to hand it over to you, and if we have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll close it out and let people type questions while I'm doing kind of housekeeping. So if when I finish we don't have any questions, we'll end a few minutes early. Thank you everyone for participating today. Today's webinar was recorded and will be posted on the Virginia SBDC website under live recordings and live webinars and recordings. Tomorrow you'll receive an email on the webinar and there'll be an evaluation link in the email. Please help us to continue to improve our training by taking time to complete the evaluation. If you'd like to complete the evaluation now, I'll post that and posted that in the chat window. And we will see you for our final webinar of the year on December 10th, Social and Mobile Marketing Predictions for 2016. So those of you who don't have any questions can go ahead and head out. Otherwise, we do have one question at this point. Ray, how do you get the dialer to work in Google Hangouts?
So the dialer just comes up. So if you're in the main Gmail interface, which also I'm remiss to say that I didn't say this, but the chat function for Google Hangouts, which is instant messaging as well as video and voice phone calls, works in Inbox by Gmail as email interface, but it should naturally actually show. If it doesn't, go to your gear icon, drop down to settings, and then there's a chat tab, and you can enable chat or Hangouts by going to the settings tab, going to chat. I'm sorry, go to the chat tab at the settings, and then enabling chat there. Once you're in there, it will pop up a little window at the bottom of your screen, and you'll be able to go ahead and initiate voice or video or just text-based chat from there. I hope that answers your question. If not, feel free to clarify, and I can give further instructions.
Okay. Well, Ray, we don't have any other questions, so thank you everyone for participating today, and hopefully we'll see you in a couple of weeks for our last webinar of the year.